So, where is Chopper? The doctor slash mascot of the crew sadly does not make an appearance in this chapter, despite the rest of the missing crew members from the last chapter all reuniting by the end, which does bring up the question, is he actually missing like them, or did Oda just choose not to draw him on that page with the other four members still on board the Great Eric? That is a genuine question we had to ask at this point, because there's not a lot of reasons for Oda to keep him separated from the others if he was planning to have them all reunite this quickly. Personally, I was thinking that we'd have them all separated for a couple of chapters, maybe focusing mostly on Nami exploring around a bit in this one before running into one of them at the end, and then keeping up that pace until they're all back together in 3 to 4 chapters. But now that we have the entire East Blue crew back together, we do have to ask, where is the cute reindeer? Because without his emergency food, Luffy was forced to sate his hunger by eating and cooking a giant rabbit that him, Zoro, and Sanji found after waking up on Elbaf. Which, by the way, we do get confirmation in this chapter that the 5 of them are indeed on Elbaf, which I guess means that the theory that they all drunkenly boarded the Sunny and sailed off on their own towards the island is much more likely now. There's still a small chance that the mysterious character we saw at the end of 1124 might have played a hand in getting these 5 to Elbaf ahead of the others. Definitely seemed like he was waiting for them to show up, and the odds that it was him double if he is indeed the man marked by flames. But as of right now, all signs are pointing towards the alcohol theory. We even have Nami and Usopp realizing that their current situation is due to them drinking themselves silly with the Green Fairy, though they mistakenly end up thinking that this whole thing is a hallucination at the worst possible time, which doesn't work out well for Usopp. Also, I guess that means that the next time we check in with Robin and the rest will be after this mini adventure is over and they all sadly dock on Elbaf worried about what happened to Luffy, only to see that their captain and crewmates are not only fine, but have somehow beat them to the island. But back to the rabbit, because that might end up causing some major issues for the Straw Hats. We see that the Giants refer to it as the Mighty Ear God, which could mean that it held some kind of importance to them and their culture, so finding out that Luffy not only killed, but also ate such an important creature isn't going to be the best introduction. And even if the rabbit wasn't all that important, the amount of chaos that the monster trio caused in their short time on the island will most likely be an issue, because they were also causing giant bees to rain down from the sky. Was it self-defense? Most likely, but the Giants may not see it that way. They may just see it as outsiders who snuck their way onto their island, wreaking havoc on their wildlife. Even if the boys were to say that the bees attacked them, which is most likely what happened, some types of bees can be territorial, it probably won't end up mattering. Not to mention, it's hinted that the fire they used to cook the Ear God is the same fire that the Giants had to quickly put out before it damaged the Yggdrasil tree. Which, if you know even a little about Norse mythology, which the Giants and Elbaf are based on, then you know that tree is very important to them. They even say that their country would be doomed if anything were to happen to it. Also, fun note, while I don't think it's ever been officially confirmed, or at the very least I couldn't find it in my research, I'm pretty sure the Yggdrasil tree is actually an atom tree, which could explain why they hold that tree in such high regard, because the wood from atom trees are very valuable. I think Frankie spent something crazy like 2 billion berries or something around there trying to get his hands on some. Selling the wood from that tree may be the main source of income for the Giants, which means if anything were to happen to it, then their economy is going to sink quicker than Kid did. Now, that being said, I do doubt that the fire was actually caused by the three of them. I feel like at the very least Sanji would have made sure to put out the fire they used to cook the giant rabbit before moving on. So more than likely there's something else at play here. Maybe a mysterious antagonist for this mini arc, but until that gets revealed, the blame's going to be placed on them. So I'm expecting at least a little bit of conflict between them and the Giants over that, but not very much considering that once Luffy goes Gear 5, they'll all recognize him as the Sun God and quickly get over it. Though there might even be a bit of a snag there, because while they're all panicking over putting out the fire before it hits the Yggdrasil tree, one of the Giants mentions reporting all the weird things that are happening to the Great Sun God. That is, I have no idea. My first guess is that it's a mistranslation, and when we get the official release of the chapter, it'll be Prince Loki they're referring to, him or possibly one of his parents who should be the king or queen. But if it's not, and they really did meet the Sun God, then we have a pretender on our hands, and have possibly found our villain of this arc. But honestly, I'm expecting the former over the latter, and any conflict that this mayhem may bring, I really do expect to be resolved pretty quickly. Honestly, I'm expecting Nami to hold the biggest grudge at the end of this. I mean, as far as she's concerned, they kidnapped her, stripped her, and left her in a dangerous place where giant animals have been trying to kill her since she woke up. She is not going to be happy when she finds out who put her here. And I guess now is a good time to talk about the actual here, in other words, Elbaf. You see, the one thing I didn't notice when I reviewed the last chapter was the fact that everything around Nami seemed to be made out of Legos. I honestly didn't even notice after I read the chapter again on Sunday when the official translation came out. I only picked up on it after watching another reviewer mention it. I think it was Grand Line Review's video about the chapter. But after realizing it, my thoughts initially went straight to Prince Loki, because I was thinking that since he was supposed to marry Lola, that maybe Loki would be around the same age as her, which would currently be about 26 years old. And since giants tend to live about 3 times longer than normal humans in One Piece, then in their culture, he might still be considered a child. Which I will say, the silhouette we do have of him does kind of give that feel. And if he is still considered a child, then it would make sense for him to have a room, a playhouse, or something made entirely of Legos, which is where Nami woke up in, with him using her and the others as sort of living toys, kind of like Toy Story. But as it turns out, Legos might just be the island's default building material, though it could just be this specific village and the castle that are made out of them. We don't know. We know very little about Elbaf, and we've seen even less of the island. For all we know, other parts of the islands could have buildings made out of wood, metal, or any other building material. Now, when we check in with Nami in this chapter, she had just used Zeus to defeat one of those giant bees. Since there doesn't seem to be anyone around her at the beginning, I guess we can assume that the person calling for her to wake up in the last chapter was actually Zeus. That, or maybe it actually was Prince Loki. I mean, this is assumably his castle that they're in, so he might have some way of keeping an eye on everyone and everything inside of it. It definitely adds points to the idea that Loki could be the antagonist of this arc, though I'm still not exactly sold on that. Personally, I don't think we're going to have a real villain on Elbaf. The closest we'll get is in this situation right here, where this half of the crew has no idea what's going on and perceive Loki as a threat due to their confusion and his mischievous nature. But once they realize that there's no actual bad guy for them to punch, things will quickly calm down and this will turn into a short rest before they head off again. And after this chapter, I bet Nami will be more than happy when they finally can leave the island. I mean, as soon as she wakes up, she has to deal with a giant bee, then immediately she gets chased through the castle by a giant hedgehog. Technically, the hedgehog was her fault. It was approaching her rather innocently and only got aggressive after she scared it by yelling, but either way, so far she has not had a good time. And neither has Usopp, as she runs into him trying to fend off a giant cat from making him his lunch. Now, they do manage to knock out the hedgehog, Nami once again using Zeus to take out the giant animal attacking her, but unfortunately for them, the hedgehog falls right onto the cat, shocking it, which only makes it angrier. And this is where Usopp makes the grave mistake of believing that this whole thing is a hallucination caused by the alcohol, and lets the cat attack him, assuming it's not real and won't actually hurt him. Yeah, that doesn't work, and he gets sent flying. Honestly, might be my favorite moment of this entire chapter. Nami and Usopp, in my opinion, have always been the best comedic duo on the crew. We've had a lot of laughs at their expense over the course of the manga, but this moment might have been one of the best we've ever gotten from the two of them. I mean, just look at that face that Nami makes when Usopp gets hit by the cat. I really do believe that she thinks that Usopp did die right here, and this shouldn't be funny because she's crying over the loss of one of her friends, but at the same time, you can't help but laugh. Anyway, Nami and the cat fall from the balcony right after him, landing in the same area. The cat then transforms into a lion somehow, and then as Nami uses Usopp as a meat shield from the cat, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji all come in and do a combo move to take it out. Now, the cat being able to transform into a lion is kind of interesting because so far we haven't seen any of the other animals do that. Now, to be fair though, our sample size does consist of a hedgehog, a rabbit, and a few bees, but still, it's the only one with this ability so far. Which means we do have to ask the obvious question, is this actually a cat? The main giveaway that it might not be is the crown it wears on his head, and the fact that Loki in Norse mythology is known to shapeshift into animals from time to time. So it could be that the cat is actually him, but the main argument against that is the fact that after being knocked out, the cat just turned back into a normal cat. So yeah, that idea might be out the window, and it could be that the reason why it wears a crown is because it's simply one of the prince's personal pets. Speaking of pets, now that we have the East Blue crew all reunited, we had to circle back to the question I asked at the beginning of this video. Where's Chopper? And I think it's pretty obvious. If the cat isn't Loki, then wherever he is, Chopper's there as well. Sort of the same way Big Mom was trying to keep Brook as whatever he was to her, Loki might be treating Chopper the exact same way, because we can clearly see that he really likes animals, so he might be trying to make Chopper into his new pet. Again, assuming that Chopper is actually on the island and not on board the Great Eric with the rest of the crew. Last thing I want to mention is the new designs for these 5. They are almost perfect. I honestly love each and every one of them except for Usopp's, and honestly, I really only don't like his because of the beard. It just, To me, it just doesn't fit him in my opinion. My next least favorite is Sanji's, but I'd honestly still give his an 8 out of 10. Both Luffy and Zoro's new looks get a 9, and of course, Nami's gets a perfect 10, for reasons. Anyway, this was one hell of an introduction to Elbaf. Just off the chapter alone, there are so many different directions the story can go in, and I'm not sure exactly which one I like more. I'm just ready to see how Oda develops the arc. I guess my next question is, how long is this arc going to actually end up being? Egghead was about 70 chapters, but I'm expecting this to be a bit shorter, so maybe closer to 50 or 60. But considering the amount of lore we're expecting to learn while on Elbaf, it could be extended to even beyond that. Either way, if Oda keeps it at this level, then I am down for the ride no matter how long it takes. But let me know in the comments down below, what did you think of the chapter? Do you think Prince Loki will be the main antagonist? Is there a fake sun god on the island? And more importantly, where's Chopper?